And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Friday, January 12th. I am Josh Engleman. I'm joined by Eric Lindquist. We are brought to you by BetMGM, and we have an 8-game slate ahead of us with a little bit of news that has trickled in earlier today. Kind of a disgusting slate, but these are the best ones. We're not just jamming 87 value plays from one specific team. That feels a little bit better than it has lately. I know now that I said that, that's going to happen and we don't see it coming. So hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live, and follow us both on Twitter. Eric, what's up?
Not much. We both just got done going to the gym, so that's good for us. We got our little workouts in. So I'm happy that we're feeling the flow, feeling the pump, and now we get to work on a little bit of basketball. I mean, it's weird because you look at the injury report, you look at, NBA.com, and it's long, but there's not a lot that is that surprising. Like, we're still sitting on Gobert, Siakam. Like, there's some guys that we're going to need some at least some idea of what's happening. But as you said before, we don't have a 95% Jaden Hardy to look at in the projections today. We don't have this crazy chalk spot. And, with all the blowouts yesterday, I'm just happy to turn it over to a new slate. Hopefully some more logical things happen today.
I hope so. I hope you had a good time at the gym. I did like 3 12-ounce curls. And I curled up a couple quesadilla tacos to my face. I curled some chips and salsa up to my face. It was a lot. It was a lot. I needed a nap after it for sure, but it felt pretty good.
That's good.
Yeah, tough workout.
Very, very good. Yep. But
tough
you know
workout.
What? Yeah, those are the best kind. Mm-hmm.
Oh, it was good. I'm going to pay for it probably tomorrow. Yeah, probably it'll be a little sore. It's not going to be that muscle sore you feel. It's going to be more of an evacuation sore, but it happens.
Evacuation, go.
Yeah, it's going to be unappealing. You ready to break this one down?
That was graphic. Now I'm okay. Yeah, no, I'm ready.
Larry C, it'll be pizza bite sore. Those 100 pizza bites were like one of the easiest things I've ever done in my life.
The Pizza Bite Challenge back in the day? Yeah. It was a long time ago now.
I mean, that's probably what, probably 2019 if I had to guess. Maybe even like late 2018. I don't know. That stream's out there somewhere. That was easy.
What was the one chip challenge evacuation for you?
So that really wasn't that bad. My biggest issue there was just pain in my stomach.
Yeah.
Like bathroom
esophagus pain.
Bathroom wise, it was fine. The only I just felt like I swallowed nails, and hot nails. It just hurt, really, really bad. Like the mouth stuff was
Detroit
fine.
Pistons.
Kinda. The mouth pain wasn't anything crazy. The evacuation pain wasn't any crazy. It was like the 30 minutes in between getting a milkshake to cool it off and not having that milkshake. That was the bad part.
And we're ready to talk NBA DFS.
Sacramento Kings, 1.5-point underdogs in Philadelphia, 241 total. We have some ownership coming into the Kings, 10% to Domantas Sabonis, 5% to De'Aaron Fox, 20 to Malik Monk, and 15 to Trey Lyles. We did get news a little bit earlier today. Kevin Huerter is out. That kind of changes up the shape of Sacramento a little bit. I'm not getting much of this team. I had a bunch of Trey Lyles earlier today, but I am relatively light on the Sacramento Kings. I'm not thrilled by that. I feel like every time I don't play Domantas Sabonis, he has quite the day. Maybe that has something to do with the fact that he has a 1.59 fantasy point per minute rate over the past 30 days. He's playing quite well.
Yeah, he's playing fantastic. And, this is the first game right out the get-go, and you don't want to go completely ham with it, but considering the condensed nature of these slates, I'm more inclined to play good early chalk here. It's only a half-hour slate that we have jammed in this spot, so it doesn't really matter all that much. I doubt there's going to be a ton of news that breaks within that 30-minute window. If there is, sorry ahead of time. But Malik Monk is the one I wanted to get your discussion, just the talking point. He's pulling the most ownership on the Kings side. You had 2 really wonky game scripts. The Detroit one, where Sacramento was down early, and then it just became like evisceration in the third quarter. And then just an evisceration altogether that last time out against Charlotte. He played 28 and 30 minutes. There's no Kevin Huerter, which I think probably shores up the minutes even further. But I'm not in love with him. It would seem the way that a lot of people are seeing 18.3%, 6,200. It seems like a decent price tag, but I mean, they're still, I think, going to throw out Chris Duarte for some type of minutes here with,
Yeah.
It just feels as though one of those spots against the 76ers, it's basically a pick 'em. I feel like I should like Malik Monk, and yet I'm just not really getting to him. So I was curious. He's a 1.13 fantasy point per minute guy, but doesn't feel like the kind of guy on this slate that I'm going to land on that much.
I have 8%. We got him projected for 19% ownership. You look at the optimal rate, 13.5 to that 19%. So coming in a little bit over owned. I think you and I are seeing it the same way. Certainly you see the upside. You see what happens if this game breaks the right way and he is a part of a closing lineup and you end up getting 31 minutes, 32 minutes or something like that. It just doesn't have to happen in that way. So I do want to have some. I wouldn't feel comfortable at all not getting there with Herder out. But yeah, my expectation is that Chris Duarte starts, plays at best, or at least, I guess, that first quarter rotation, third quarter rotation. We've seen him have a couple games where he does not see the floor in the second and fourth quarter. Maybe he does because they don't want to go totally to just extra bench mob dudes like Juan Toscano Anderson and Colby Jones. But yeah, in 20, so like I went 28 minutes. We have 29 at the site, and he's still that negative leverage play. Even if I gave him that extra minute, I don't think I would be getting all the way to the field. So I'm a little apprehensive, but I wouldn't tell anybody he's a bad play.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at, is that he's not a bad play. I get to a certain extent why people are getting there, but I think the amount of which they're getting there is a little bit surprising to me, because it doesn't have to be him in the closing lineup. There's a lot of ways that this game breaks where, Malik Monk doesn't knock down shots immediately. We've seen those minutes mitigated to low 20s with or without Kevin Herder. So there's at least the downside there. There's no doubt an upside, but not going to be getting to 18%, that's for sure. The rest of this team, I mean, Keegan Murray has gone 0 dark 30 a little bit on the world, just knocking down shots. The usage has been up 21.6, 25%. Those are his two high marks since December 16th. So we've seen Keegan Murray take on a little bit more of an offensive workload. I think, that's an okay thing to land on some shares of, but 6.8%, you're just getting a couple of lineups out of 150 with them. De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, their pay up options to get different as pay up options. And Sabonis, we know what that upside can be here as well. Nice to not have Embiid on the other side.
Yeah. Only thing I have right now is 8% of Monk, 6% of Lyles. I don't love not having Sabonis. I wish that would just be a little bit more than it is. But for right now, that's where I stand. So I don't have too much else to say for Sacramento. I'm going to hit this super chat quickly as we get to Philly, because this can lead in perfectly. Jacob Cook says, assuming no minutes limit, would LaMelo be a great GPP pivot off of Tyrese Maxey? The assumption of no minutes limit, I think, is the problem there. Yes, if LaMelo Ball was expected to play 35 minutes like he normally does, it's not that he would be a pivot off of Tyrese Maxey. He would just be owned similarly to Tyrese Maxey. The pivot wouldn't really exist any longer. Like, that would be a great pivot if you were the only one that knew he was going to do that. But the moment that information would come out, LaMelo Ball would no longer be a pivot. He would just be a good play.
That's a great way of breaking it down. Like LaMelo Ball, there's a 7 fantasy point discrepancy between him and Tyrese Maxey. There's a $200 discrepancy in the other direction. So like LaMelo Ball's more expensive and he's projected for 7 fewer. There's obviously a range of outcomes where a 1.43 fantasy point per minute producer like LaMelo Ball goes out, goes crazy, puts up the 50 spot, but then you got to get other things right. And the number of times that Tyrese Maxey goes out and hits his base rate just goes for 47, 48, even a little bit shy of that 50, just assuming their minutes workload. I don't look at it as like a pivot. I look at it as like, if I am extremely chalky in absolutely every other spot in a specific lineup, if I'm hand building, or, if I'm looking at a allotment of 150 where, I'm trying to find some kind of point of deviation, like Melo Ball can be that, but as you said before, if you knew that he was going to be playing 34 here, he would be properly a lot higher owned. So it just kind of is what it is. We assume 28 minutes. And so looking at that assumption, there's just no way that I'm going to be landing on him in 50, 100, even probably in my 150 lineups.
Philly side looks a little bit more interesting to me than Sacramento. 15% ownership coming into Nick Batum, Tobias Harris, and Tyrese Maxey. Single digits across the board for everybody else. No Robert Covington, no Joel Embiid. Those are the only two sort of items that matter. What are you getting to here from Philly? Because I have the 3 guys that are getting some ownership. I had a lot more Tyrese Maxey earlier today, but right now I'm neutral to the field. I'm just getting around the field on everybody. Little bit of a stand on Tobias Harris, but nothing crazy.
Yeah, I expect Tyrese Maxey to be somebody that, with Joel Embiid out at these times, he's got to be performing better than what he has been. It goes from like a 1.36 to a 1.37 fantasy producer in 92 minutes with Joel Embiid off the floor this season. I expect that to go up, and part of it is Tobias Harris is playing better this season. He's been more of that guy that was given the Clippers contract, and like we're seeing Tobias Harris come into a little bit of his own, but this is still got to be a spot where I have a lot of interest in Tyrese Maxey. You could get to just as much of him as you wanted at 9,300, and I don't think he's going to be a bad play because eventually he's going to have that 60, 70 piece. Obviously, he did it last time against Atlanta, but Sacramento still going to be a team that's up in pace, nearly the top 10 in pace there. Are they for the season? So Tyrese Maxey, 9,300, no problem getting to him. I really like Tobias Harris too. 7,200 small forward, power forward, fits easily into lineups. Don't mind DeAnthony Melton. I mean, he's a 0.91 fantasy point per minute guy, goes up a tiny bit here as well with no Joel Embiid on the floor. Fine with it. What do we do, though, with Paul Reed? Because nobody wants to play him now. 5,500. We've seen enough times where they'll go to Bamba. You had this weird 19-minute spot last time out against Atlanta. Not sure what to make of it, but we have him at 24 minutes. That's probably appropriate, but there's got to be a spot where he goes out, smashes from the get-go, and goes for 20, 30 minutes. Now you're getting the ownership discount to kind of make up for it.
I have 6% right now, so a little bit over that field number. I had a little bit more earlier today. I like the idea of getting to him just because he does see just like wildly random minutes. And if you happen to know that Paul Reed was going to get 28 or 29 today, you also assume it's happening because it's going well for him. They didn't have to play more of Mo Bamba or Marcus Morris. I'm not getting enough, but I would like to.
Yeah, it's such a weird stint. I mean, he came in at the 4:10 mark last time out against Atlanta, and then they brought Mo Bamba in for the last minute in 16. Not a foul issue. I thought maybe he got dinged up or something happened there towards the end of that second quarter that kind of mitigated those minutes, but I didn't see that. Correct me if I'm wrong. I didn't see that he got nicked up or something. So
not that I know of.
What was that?
Not that I know of.
Yeah, not that I know of either. So it's kind of weird to just see Mo Bamba come out for that last minute in 16. Obviously, you didn't want him to pick up a third, perhaps, but then you just expected him to get more run there in that fourth quarter. He played all of like 2.5 minutes in the fourth, didn't close, didn't play overtime. So there's a definite minutes downside. And, Marcus Morris, not the guy you probably want to have on the floor for closing minutes like that many times. So there's at least like a case to be made for getting to Paul Reed, but 8-game slate, lots of more appealing options, I suppose, but we obviously know what that ceiling can be.
Anything else you want to touch on here for Philly? I don't have too much to say. It's just they're kind of obvious, I guess. Yeah.
Jaden Springer was somebody that I looked at earlier as like the cheapy. He's now the highest leverage player in our boom bust tool at the moment. Was breaking down like the most leveraged players, writing an article this morning, and he was somebody that was showing up in the top 3, top 5 of our projections for it. But I just think it's a little bit unnecessary at 3,100 to try to go inherit. I went back and looked at the minutes there from that game. He ended up having a full rotation from the first to the middle of the second quarter, then another, just your typical backup minutes. But at 13, 14 minutes, we know DraftKings pricing's been better this season. I just find him to kind of be an unnecessary look on this kind of a slate. On different slates, on a shorter slate, I think he would be somebody to kind of have in your back pocket on like a 4-gamer going forward.
If you could feel a little bit more comfortable about minutes upside, I would like that sort of option as a different value play. But now with Melton back, Oubre here, there's like a very specific game script you would need for Springer. And I'm with you. I don't know if that's what we're going to be looking for today.
Yeah, it feels like the Moses Moody of the Philadelphia 76ers right now, and I just don't think I need to do it.
Well, I think we're probably going to do something in this next game. Indiana Pacers, 5.5-point dogs in Atlanta, 252 total. What's crazy is, even with Tyrese Halliburton out, only one guy on DraftKings is projected for double-digit ownership. That is 13% to Jalen Smith. And at least as of right now, Jalen Smith is questionable, as is Aaron Nesmith. So we don't even know if he's going to play. It would be great information if we knew that. We will get that since this is a 7:30 start. Single digits across the board to everybody else. What do you like here from the Pacers?
Yeah, there's just some interesting stuff with Tyrese Halliburton off the floor. You get the matchup. So Atlanta, 252 total. Just you know that this thing can go nuclear at any time. But without Tyrese Halliburton on the floor, it's kind of a team that outside of Bruce Brown Jr., who I'm over the field on, I'm not over the field on anybody else here from the team. I know you're a Miles Turner guy, so we'll see if that ends up ringing true at the end of the day. But I would need some news to kind of break the wave where I'd want to go to some more Miles Turner. If Jalen Smith is out, I was happy to jam Isaiah Jackson last slate, and I would do it a million times out of a million. But 3,500 is markedly different than 4,100 on this slate. So you have to at least think twice about what it is that you're trying to accomplish there. And I don't think he has the same kind of utility today as he might have on that previous slate. But looking at Jalen Smith here, 5K, power forward center, I get why people are getting there. I think he's more volatile here in the double digits than what I would want to be embracing to a certain extent. I think Bruce Brown Jr. is my favorite guy to get to from this team. We know that, over the course of this season, a 0.82 fantasy point per minute guy. But now with Tyrese Halliburton, first game out there, 27 minutes, saw him fill up a box score. And that's where Bruce Brown Jr. really has his utility. He's a guy who's going to rebound and assist over expectation without a Tyrese Halliburton on the floor. He played that role in Denver as well. I think getting the positionality, shooting guard, small forward at 5,600 in this game environment, that's the most appealing part to me. And even TJ McConnell, considering he's 1.4%, I'm currently at 8%. I just built out like a regular 150 set before the show, and I'm well north on TJ McConnell. It's a 1.32 fantasy point per minute guy. You take Tyrese Halliburton off the floor, which doesn't really matter all that much because he plays almost all of his minutes without Halliburton on the floor anyway. But it does go up to 1.36 in 95 minutes on the season. So I look at Halliburton as a guy that if you wanted to be 4, 5, 6%, even at 7K with the sticker shock, I'd be just fine getting to a little bit of him, maybe one lineup out of your 20 max.
You're getting to the wrong point guard, brother.
Oh God, you're going to Nembhard again. I can't. This guy is just killing everybody. Oh,
this is Andrew Nembhard is the GPP play of today. I'm telling you right now.
Okay, please make the case, please.
It's an easy case, and it's a case that Adam and I have been making for like a year and a half. When he is not on the floor with TJ McConnell or Tyrese Halliburton, he is just simply a different player. You don't see that in his regular stats because when you add all this stuff together, he looks like shit. But that's not the case when those guys aren't out there. Now, these two guys, he did not play alongside TJ McConnell in their last game. Could they today? Yeah, of course they can. But if they go with the same assumption that we are splitting 48 minutes or somewhere around if they play 2 or 3 together, that's not going to be the death sentence. He's 5,600. He's point guard, shooting guard, and he is completely unowned right now. 232 minutes this season without those guys on the floor. 23% usage rate. 0.97 DraftKings points per minute. When you think about it like that, it's like, okay, he's close to a fantasy point per minute. He's using possessions at a slightly above average rate. I only gave him 20% usage. But the big takeaway here, he's been awful when he's done it. 46% true shooting is completely dreadful. Worst case scenario, he's still that guy at 46% true shooting, getting close to a fantasy point per minute in a matchup against the 26th ranked defense, number 5 in pace. So you're moving that per minute rate up just because of the game environment. And there's also the possibility that he goes from 46%, which is like next level bad as it gets in the league, to 50 or 51, which is still well below average, but also going to dramatically increase a per minute rate. I think he's just getting slept on because this role only happens every so often and nobody's digging into it enough. I have 12%. It's not a massive stand. It's not nearly the 80 or whatever I had 2 days ago. If he's unowned, I love him as a GPP option.
Yeah, the case you made there as you're talking through it, I could kind of make for Benedict Mathurin, but he's 800 more, shooting guard, small forward, better eligibility at least.
Yeah.
But Nembhard gets the first crack at it. I mean, you got to think that just him continuing to start is a definite positive for him there. Played 26 minutes, played like absolute garbage last time out. As you said, the shooting's been down, hasn't looked all that good. Again, you go from having Tyrese Halliburton on a floor who's out there creating for everybody, doing absolutely everything, and you remove him, guy who's a top 3 offensive player in the league this season, it's going to create some kind of figure it out moments. Like you're going to have to figure out how this offense is supposed to flow. And eventually in Andrew Nembhard, I mean, I just go back to last season. You had the one glaring example where he smashed against Golden State his first start without Tyrese Halliburton. And then it felt like we were chasing the entire rest of the way. It just became difficult. And, he'd be sitting, 5,200 and you'd still be landing on him in some capacity. But I like what you said there where, you get the first crack at it for him, 1.4% ownership, getting to 12%. You're not making like a 20x stand. You're not trying to like just jam him or anything. I think that's a really good shout out and something that can make a difference maker on a slate like this, where everything's pretty condensed, where people want to go in these kind of ranges.
I feel like people just don't listen. By the way, I didn't say this one, 37% assist rate in that time. Andrew in chat says, Nembhard's good in theory, but for whatever reason, his best games this season is roughly 30 to 32 points. Yes. Do you know why that is? Because he's playing alongside Tyrese Halliburton and TJ McConnell. That's the whole point of this. He's also not a rookie that he's working out. He was in the league last year too.
Yeah. 266 minutes without Halliburton.
0-2.
0.93 DraftKings points per minute guy. And as I said before, like there's a figure it out period that has to exist here. I'm getting currently to the most Bruce Brown. Part of it is positionality. Part of it is just like the what else he does in a box score from the get-go. But I'm going to revisit some Nembhard now before the show. And similar to last slate where, I almost took down some stuff because of some calls you had that kind of got me off of the wrong stuff. I will give you your due if it works.
And like I'm saying, this is a GPP large field contest type play. I'm not telling you to put him in a 300 person single entry. I think you don't need that on an 8-gamer. But with what we've seen, just slightly hot shooting will keep him out there for 27 or 28 minutes. That's what we need.
I can't believe they're trying to justify this. I think he made about as good of a case for a 1% player as you'll have for anybody on this slate. So again, this is why I hope you're tuning into the shows, is that you don't just have the group think that comes with high ownership on certain spots, because that's not too hard to parse through. And like the Sims tool is going to do a lot of the work for you, but going to the ROI boost and actually getting Andrew Nembhard when nobody else is, because of logic, because of reasoning, because of box scores, and because of fantasy point per minute rates, what they can be, like that is going to be the difference between you achieving above your expectation, like your ROI level, and then being below your ROI level for the entire season. You got to beat the rake and you got to get, beat people. So yeah, Nembhard can be that guy. I definitely am going to revisit that.
The quality of relevant information, aside from these guys reading the numbers off their computers, is going to drop tremendously without Adam. I'd love to know what you think Adam was doing on the opposite side, other than reading this shit off of his computer.
Here's the thing is that, we both love Adam, and like Adam would definitely be like, yeah, no, I was reading a lot of numbers.
Yeah. Do you think that he prepared before he got to the show?
He prepared by like drinking to make sure that he could deal with everybody.
I'm about to get a DM or a text, I'm sure. All right. Opposite side of this one, Atlanta Hawks. I think you got to get here in a big way. 10% ownership to Trae Young, Sadiq Bey, Jalen Johnson, 15 to Capella, 21 to DeJounte Murray. I've got big stands here, but I want to know what you're doing.
Yeah, so the Pacers, 103.3 possessions per 48 minutes. They are the team that you want to see on the other side of you, pretty much in all circumstances when you're going to roster another team. And then they're just too damn cheap. I mean, the guy that I'm just playing tons of, absolute metric tons of, is Trae Young, 9,900. 11.1%, 1.42 fantasy point per minute guy. You can adjust that to, you can pull the bar to nearly 1.5, and you're going to get a lot of him. I think looking at him relative to some other pay up point guard options, shooting guard options, he's a guy at guard that I just want to be getting to lots of. I think that there's obvious shootout potential of this game. And DeJounte Murray, kind of the point guard, shooting guard spot, sitting at just 1.1 fantasy point per minute, but this is there are murmurs at least that he's on the trade block going back to San Antonio or something of that nature. Don't really care about that. I care about the fact that his price tag is now down to 7,200. This is somebody that you go through the box scores, and he was 8,700 in the middle of December. There's a pretty obvious reason that this has come down a little bit. Jalen Johnson is kind of a guy. Like, this is a dude with obvious upside who fills up a box score as well, 1.10 fantasy point per minute guy, but I'm overweight to Jalen Johnson, nearly 3x. I'm nearly 3x Trae Young. I'm double the field on Clint Capella. And DeJounte Murray, I'm just about at the field on at 18%. I mean, this is a team that that I have a lot of. And obviously, DeJounte Murray is somebody that I would like to get a ton of. But there's a guy coming up a little bit later that I think is absorbing a little bit more of my shooting guard exposure than what I was anticipating.
32% Trae Young, 14 Sadiq Bey, 24 Jalen Johnson, 54 DeJounte Murray, 18 Clint Capella. Give me all of Atlanta. Indy sucks. And now, I mean, they might actually be better defensively with no Tyrese Halliburton, but they're not enough better. They're 27th overall, even if they get to 22nd because you get rid of them. I want all things Atlanta. I wish I had more of Indy, but the price tags on the Hawks today look damn good.
And just to clarify, if Jalen Smith and Aaron Nesmith are out, you're going to get to Indy too.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's a big piece here. We have two guys just waiting in the wings. We might create even more value. Like if those two guys are out, get ready to fire up your Obi Toppins.
Yep. For sure.
All righty. Schedule for the rest of the day. Very simple. NBA Live Before Lock coming up next. Also, I want you guys to use our avatar. Head to stokastic.com/avatar. Grab that logo. Load it up. DraftKings, FanDuel, Owner's Box, Yahoo. If you finish in the top 3 of a contest with 5,000 or more entries, you get 1 month of whatever you want at Stokastic. If you want the NBA Sims tool, projections, ownership, Discord, contest generator, sim tool, lineup generator. I don't think you'll find a better situation anywhere else, and you didn't have to do anything to do it. Totally free. Just post that win at Stokastic HOF on Twitter. Show us the lineup. Show us how you did in the contest. We want to see it. We want to show people how well you did. So that's the deal. Stokastic.com/avatar. Houston Rockets. Next one up. 8-point favorites in Detroit. No Dylan Brooks, no Tari Eason on the Detroit side. Bojan Bogdanovic now out, but Beef Stew is back. 34% ownership coming into Jalen Green, 20 to Jabari Smith, 20 to Fred VanVleet, 15 to Cam Whitmore, and 28 to Alperen Şengün. What of Houston are you getting to?
I think pre-show, the guy that we were the most surprised with where ownership is coming in is Jalen Green. And it's not that people are getting there, it's how much they're getting there. 33.7% ownership is for all intents and purposes wrong. He's nearly a fantasy point per minute guy, but this feels like a knee-jerk reaction to one spot where he played overtime and ended up going nuclear to all of 40 fantasy points last time out against Chicago. 35 minutes kind of being where he ended up getting there in regulation, but you got to take that down a little bit. He hadn't played over 31 minutes in a game for 5 straight. Cam Whitmore is starting to be a guy that they are allocating minutes to. 23 minutes kind of a game at that small forward position. Doesn't cut in entirely to him, but they still carve out rotation minutes for a top 5 pick in Amin Thompson. Jayshawn Tate still playing around 24-ish minutes. I don't see how you take Jalen Green and move him to 34 minutes as like a baseline projection. If you did that, I could see why people are getting to 33.7% of him. But otherwise, this is a team that, for me, obviously going up against Detroit is a positive in just about any way, shape, or form. They're the second worst adjusted defensive rating team over in dunks and threes. But you get Alperen Şengün, 8,400. The price tag continues to go up a little bit here. Yeah, we were paying even higher dollar there, but Fred VanVleet was going to come along for the ride eventually. Still sitting at a 1.07 fantasy point per minute guy that I expect to come up a little bit more by season's end. But him, Jabari Smith, they're just kind of dudes on this slate to me. I think they're about appropriately owned. For me, Jalen Green is kind of going insane in ownership right now. So I'm kind of below on just about every single person, except for I do have 12% Cam Whitmore, but I don't feel good about that.
I have 26, so I feel good about
double
it.
On Cam Whitmore. Okay.
Big fan. Wish I had more.
Okay.
Big fan. I think he's live for 30 minutes today, and I wouldn't be surprised if we found a tweet in an hour that says that he's starting over Jayshawn Tate.
Well, everybody needs to look at last game. He hasn't started a game yet this season, but he played 28 minutes in regulation. That is so different from the mid-teens where he had been. I kind of hope that news doesn't come out now because, again, for me, it's a 1.16 fantasy point per minute player against Detroit, where if he ends up starting over Jayshawn Tate, everybody's going to want to get to him ad nauseum. Kind of hoping he doesn't start again and just plays that same rotation, but that's just me.
I appreciate you making this show a better visual experience for me by turning your camera off.
Oh, God, did it do that again? Whatever. You're welcome. You're welcome. It's okay. Don't mind me.
We immediately got a bump of 400 viewers the moment that went away.
Everybody smashed crazy. The like button at once. There it was. Yeah. I knew you wanted Jake Hari on these shows to be beautiful anyway. It's okay. We'll get Jake. We'll get Jake here. What the fuck, camera? Whatever. So
for right now, I'm pretty light on Jalen Green and Şengün. It's mostly an ownership thing. If we see that come down a little bit, I'll probably ramp up a little bit more. But the guy that I have my eye on is Cam Whitmore. On the Detroit side, they're a very different team now. Only one guy is in double digits in ownership. And that is quite obviously Asar Thompson. We have him projected for 19 minutes. I have him projected for 17 minutes, and yet he is still in my lineups 18% of the time. Yeah. I thought I would like a little bit more here, in particular Jaden Ivey, who gets a really big bump in usage with no Cade around and no Boyan. But I kind of just have a scattered amount of Killian Hayes, Jaden Ivey, and Asar Thompson.
Yep, that's probably the right way to handle this team. I mean, the problem is you remove certain guys from the rotation, like Cade Cunningham. There's obviously stats to go around, but there's so many different guys that can come in to pick up a little bit, like Marcus Sasser. And now everybody's price has gone up except for Asar Thompson. Yeah, he's got a great rebound rate when he's on a floor. He can be that decent guy in terms of like finding ways there, but the usage is never there. He hasn't scored double digits since the 13th. He's not getting the kind of minutes, as you said, 17 minutes is what you have him in for. I'm just going straight off of what we have in 19 minutes, and I'm feeling as though he's somebody that I'll still land on a little bit of. Killian Hayes is a tough one for me to figure out if I actually want to be getting to any whatsoever. 31 and 32 minutes the last two. If you just told me that we continue to get 32 minutes of him in these kind of spots, I feel like I have to be over the field when it's single digits, but again, that's like former me, not Sims told me, where I'm trying to like leverage my lineups and try to find guys to kind of get to the top with. And is Killian Hayes going to be the guy who puts his foot down and we see an increase of 16% usage here on the season, and yet 14.6 and 12.1% usage without Cade Cunningham now in these two starts? It's strange to me. I feel like that has to come back up, but does it really? I don't know. So 8.6%, currently at 6. Feels wrong. Feel like I want to boost him, but I'm probably not going to.
I have 14. I'm pretty happy in that range, as happy as one could be. They're in for a disaster of a time against Houston, but I think you got to take some shots with those guys out. And we still need that starting lineup. Whoever that fifth starter is, or maybe fourth and fifth starter, we don't totally know if Isaiah Stewart is going to start, but figuring out that starting lineup will play a really big role here for Detroit. Because if we get if Asar Thompson is in the starting lineup, then he is going to be aggressively owned because he's 3,600.
For what it's worth, I do think Beef Stew starts. I just don't love. Same. I don't love what I think those minutes could end up being. I bet he starts, plays 2 long rotations. You're going to need another one. Again, 26 minutes isn't nothing, but 5,300, it kind of just carves out, a little bit of my interest in everybody else. Like, I thought for value, there was a case to be made for Alec Burks, not really going to be getting there. Marcus Sasser, not really going to be getting there. There's just so many other guys that Isaiah Stewart, while he's not all that good, only a 0.77 fantasy point per minute guy, he kind of hurts you in certain areas like the rebound, things that I would really need to have buoyed, because that's going to be what Alec Burks doesn't do, Marcus Sasser doesn't do. And I feel like that would just kind of help their baseline a little bit.
Camera.
God damn it. All right. I got to just go back to the main thing here. I said I wanted to do a podcast version of this, so it is what it is.
All right, Golden State Warriors. 3-point dogs in Chicago, 228 total. One guy pulling pretty sizable ownership for Golden State. I feel like this is the same thing I'm saying for every other team. And the guy that I name for the ownership is just never the guy that anybody would want it to be. Today, it's Kevon Looney. $3,700 center only, 21% owned, single-digit ownership across the board for everybody else. If you're playing on FanDuel, 24% ownership coming into Brandon Pajemski. I have 30% of Looney, assuming he starts. I don't want to say that I feel great about the way that is happening, but that is a price tag that is too low for someone that can play more minutes.
And is a 0.96 fantasy point per minute guy. So there's a way that he walks into more minutes, and having true center followed by true center always makes me feel better rostering cheap centers like this. 3,700. You get the back and forth Vooch to Andre Drummond. I think that keeps Looney out on the floor for more minutes. Talked about that the other day, where there's just some uncertainty you get for Trace Jackson Davis and what those minutes are going to be from time to time. Again, 22 minutes, he can go out there and be the better fantasy guy. I mean, he is the better fantasy guy. 1.10 fantasy point per minute guy, higher usage, higher across the board, 15.1% usage, 10.8% usage for Kevon Looney on the season. But even in 21, 22 minutes, I'm going to get to Kevon Looney quite a bit here in this spot. Currently at 24%, so slightly over the field on what we've got. But as I go down the line for him, I want to make the case for Dario Saric, because this is probably going to be the guy that I die with a little bit today. Last 2 games here for Golden State, 14 minutes and 18 minutes. There needs to be context, though. They got completely ran out of the gym, missed an entire rotation for the Pelicans, he did. And then Toronto missed an entire rotation there against Toronto. So now we take his baseline, we change it to 22 minutes is what I ended up having him at. I saw we were a little bit lower, under 20 minutes on Dario Saric. They can go Kuminga, they can go Looney, but Dario Saric gets out with a 1.11 fantasy point per minute rate and the cheap price tag, 4,400 on a 8-game slate here. He does a lot. I mean, I know that he's not getting zero ownership like your guy, Andrew Nemhard, but at 5.5%, I currently have 30. And it feels like one of those spots that there's just an untapped amount of upside. And I think we're kind of paying him at his floor at 4,400 with the way that this rotation is breaking down for Golden State here recently. I just look at the last 2 games, and if you remove those from the equation, I think Dario Saric would be getting double-digit ownership no matter what here in this spot.
I like the shout. Power forward eligibility is interesting. I just gave him a bump of a minute. I'm going to see if I get any more of him later tonight, but I do like that shout. We got the Rockets starting lineup. It is not Cam Whitmore. They continued to go with Jayshawn Tate, but just know Tate's minutes are tenuous.
They're on the up. They're on the up and up.
Anything else for the Warriors?
Are you getting to Steph?
I have been lately. I only have 4% today.
This is 9K Steph. He's going to be in the 8K range here soon. And I get it. Again, I think the last 2 games have really depreciated the prices across the board for Golden State. And now you're buying into them as 3-point dogs here in this spot. And there's a part of me that wants to get to Steph here coming off of 25 and 30 minutes that have made that price tag change. I mean, that's really the reason that I have interest in Sarge. It's not that I think anything has changed. It's that now now what I'm getting is the depreciated prices, and it seems as though the minutes projections are kind of spotty in some different spots for them. It's kind of being based off of what we've seen the last couple. Like, I think the biggest disagreement I have is Corey Joseph the last 2 games. Like, we have Corey Joseph for 20 minutes. I've got him at 12. And I think that when you have something like that change, you're just going to get to a completely different portfolio than other people are in these spots. And these can be those massive leverage spots where if you're right about it, you can make some money. I'm making a pretty strong stand on Sarge because the positionality and the price tag allow for me to get different lineup looks. And he's a 1.11 fantasy point per minute guy. There is a massive downside if you get to Steph Curry and he has a bad shooting night, because a Tyrese Maxey is going to fill up the box score better. And you're just kind of treading water there. So for me, I want to get to Steph. I'm just not at the moment.
The Chicago Bulls side of this one, we've got Levine and Vooch all back in their starting spots. Call it 15% ownership to Vooch, 15 to DeRozan, 15 to Alex Caruso, 6 to Zach LaVine. I kind of like pieces of the Chicago team, but the guy I'm getting to the most is DeMar DeRozan, 7,100, small forward, power forward.
He's the guy I'm getting to the most too, so that makes me feel better. Small forward, power forward, as you said, 7,100 is nice. It fits into lineups a little bit better for me. And I'm overweight to Kobe White, 12% Kobe White, but a lot of that just has to do with the fact that we haven't seen a change in his role playing alongside LaVine. Will that be the long term? Maybe not. Maybe he goes back to normal, but there's no doubt that he's just carved out these massive minutes. And the tag, even though it went up here after last game, 7,400 now off of 7,200, partially buoyed by overtime. That's always something that, makes you feel a little bit worse. But I mean, if the rates stay the same, if he's going to be a 0.99 fantasy point per minute guy alongside LaVine, we just have to reconsider what he is. In the back of your brain as you're hand building, you don't go out of your way to click on Kobe White, but as I plugged him in, 12% of him, I'm okay with it on a slate like this.
Yeah, I got a bunch of this Chicago team, which I didn't expect, but this Golden State team is in shambles, and if Draymond's not around, they're not that great of a defense, so I kind of like the spot. I do want to hit these super chats. We got one from Vishace1. Apologies if that's not the way that should be said. This might be for you, because I don't know what this first word is, and maybe this is something in your realm. Momcilovic, game winner of the night?
Doesn't ring a bell. We're going to have to... Momcilovic. Milan Momcilovic. What are my look? Oh, my boy from Iowa State. Yes, Momcilovic. Okay, this does make sense. So Momcilovic, we played against Houston. It was a beautiful, beautiful thing. Completely didn't put 2 and 2 together because honestly, that was the first game that I've watched Iowa State play all year. Just full disclosure. Too busy hanging out with producer Jacob every night. So yeah, Mom Solovic game winner of the night. That would be great. Iowa State, he is a baller. That guy is an absolute baller.
DB Average Pilot also hit us with the chat. Said, hit the like button. Best way to show support. Hashtag, I assume you were going for Rise and Grind. So I'll finish that one off for you. I appreciate you being here. All right, folks. BetMGM is the sponsor. If you guys like money and you're in a legal betting state, this is easy. If you haven't signed up there yet, bet $5, get 158 in bonus bets. All you got to do is click the link to sign up. You will get a bonus bet of $50, another bet of $50, and another bonus bet of $58. This is their Super Bowl promo. Worst case scenario for you right here. If you lose every one of those bets, you go 0-4, you're only down $5 of your own money. The more likely scenario is that you pick up a dub or two in that range and you're starting off with a really nice bankroll on a bet that only had to cost you actually $5 out of your own pocket. You gotta be 21 or over. You gotta be in a legal betting state. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. But what I want you to do for real is sign up and take advantage. I'm still in North Carolina. I've got about 2 months before I can take advantage of that deal. I'm hoping when North Carolina goes live, they're like, bet $5, get $1 million, because I'm going to try to take advantage of that one if I can. Phil Sensic wants to know, Levine went wild. Is he doing it again?
Hope not.
Yeah, I have 10%, so I would prefer if he deferred to DeRozan. DeMar deferral DeRozan.
24% DeRozan for me, so yeah, I would like DeRozan instead.
Los Angeles Clippers, 8.5-point favorites in Memphis, 224 total. Single-digit ownership to everybody on the Clippers. I have basically nothing to say here. If I have shares of Zubats, Harden, Leonard, or Paul George, I'm very happy. I don't see them as any sort of priority for the entire slate.
Yeah, we haven't gotten the Paul George sitting, the Kawhi sitting, the James Harden sitting, and this team is just going to be eternally overpriced and tough to rotate through. Now, that doesn't mean don't get to them. If you're building out one lineup even, you could land on Paul George or Kawhi, and you know what that ceiling can be. It could be James Harden night on any given night, too. So, I mean, the fact that they're 8,200, 87, 8,600 keeps them in the realm of playable, but none of them are priorities. None of them are guys I'm getting to double digits of, just kind of a lineup here, a lineup there, kind of as the differentiator. Zubats, normally my favorite guy in the entire world because, you know, I'm richer because of Zubats in my life, but 6,300 is just very difficult for me to land on at center on this slate. There's some cheapies that I think that you just kind of need that value from still. Maybe something changes between lock and now, but at the moment, I mean, yeah, this is probably for me. Let me just double check so I'm not saying something that isn't true. I have like none of this team. So yeah, 6% Paul George, my highest exposure to anybody here. And that's just because he's 8,200 relative to Kawhi 8,700 and James Harden 8,600, or at least that's what I believe is happening.
Only team I have less is the Orlando Magic.
You have less Orlando. Let me take a look. I have way more Paulo Banchero than you is my guess.
Okay. And I would happily take him, but I don't see much else for the rest of that team. Grizzlies side, man, they are in absolute shambles right now, but at least they get to add, potentially the number one pick in the draft. No Steven Adams, Santi Aldama, Brandon Clark, Ja Morant, Derrick Rose, or Marcus Smart. 12% ownership coming into $4,800 Luke Kennard. Single digits across the board to every single other person. I have shares of 7 Memphis Grizzlies, but I took a stand on one of them. And for once, the stand that I'm taking is on someone with an actual heartbeat. I've got 24% Desmond Bane, 9,100 shooting guard, small forward. He is overpriced, I believe. I am paying up to be contrarian today.
Shooting guard, small forward. I'm not going to disagree with you. 9,100, that's the positionality you're looking for to do contrarian things. 1.21 fantasy point per minute guy, closer to 1.3 without Ja Morant. It's going to be a lot of fun to get to him. I only have 4% of him. I will revisit that one as well. I'm just going to make a little mark. There it goes. But Luke Kennard, Vince Williams, Zaire Williams, they all saw price increases. They're all falling outside the realm. And you say they're in shambles. They've won 3 straight, so good for them from a real life perspective. But from a DFS perspective, you need outlier shooting performances from Luke Kennard, who is a good 3-point shooter at 4,800, but 12%, there's no way that I'm going to get there. Vince Williams, as I'm looking at him, no way I'm going to be playing him at 5,300. Loved watching them play against Dallas the other night. They were sharing the ball. They were having a lot of fun. Desmond Bane taking it to the rack and not settling for open threes or I guess contested threes in a lot of those spots. But My favorite play from Memphis by far right now is Jaren Jackson Jr. That's the guy that I ended up landing on double digits of.
Sure.
I mean, 30 and 32 minutes the last two. That Phoenix spot still was a little bit wonky, and that LA Lakers spot a little bit wonky. He hasn't played. He didn't play in that Dallas game that I was alluding to, and his price still came up. But we know defensively what he can do from time to time. 1.15 fantasy point per minute guy. North of 1.2 is kind of the baseline we have in for him at Stochastic as well. I like when I run my lineups and see kind of a contrarian piece falling in through the cracks on a number of them, getting to quite a bit of Jaren Jackson Jr., and I'm okay with it. And I don't completely hate the idea of John Conchar or Xavier Tillman, but I think there's just other plays that take priority. And 25 minutes against Dallas, I think that was purely a result of Jaren Jackson Jr. being out. Maybe he played himself into more rotation minutes. We've got him for 20 minutes, but yeah, 4K shooting guard, small forward is really the only reason that I would be getting to him whatsoever.
Yeah, everything's going to come down to what we see for the starting lineup. And then anybody that's not in the starting lineup, you're just kind of crossing your fingers and hoping. Like Jacob Gilyard is a flat 3K point guard for today. They don't have any other versions of point guards. But do they want to do that? Or are they just going to play him the 12 minutes or whatever that Desmond Bane isn't on the floor and really not worry about it? I don't know. But if he got 18, 20 minutes, if they started him, he would become a value play, even as a shitty per minute dude. But I have no trust in it. I can't get there.
Yeah, and Vince Williams just got paid and started last game. Like, after last game, they ended up giving him a 3-year, $8 million deal. I think that shores up him in the starting rotation going forward. So, as much as I would want it to be Gilyard, just for the value and getting to somebody and playing alongside Bane, something just tells me we just see Vince Williams in the starting lineup from here until forever.
Yep. Next one is pretty easy to talk about, at least on one side. Orlando Magic. Well, mostly easy. Orlando is still without most of the dudes that have been out. We have a Q tag on Wendell Carter Jr., no Gary Harris, no John Isaac, no Franz Wagner. Welcome back, Joe Ingles. That happened and no one noticed. But 6% ownership coming into Paolo. He's 9,200. Nice? I would happily get some Paolo Banchero here, but 219 total in this game is the low total on the day. This is more of a slow-paced game than anything else. I only have 2 shares of Paolo and nothing else. If you're getting anywhere, please roster Paolo Banchero. Don't get anything else from the Magic.
But that's the thing is that I'm rostering this guy a fuck ton, it would appear. Paolo Banchero, do you know his usage without Franz Wagner on the floor this season?
I've got him in for 33. It's probably a little bit higher than that.
It is 34.6%. You are astute, my friend. 34.6% usage. I feel like every single night that I work through the prop market before I get on with Jacob, this is usually what I'm doing. It's just copy paste, going over to the spreadsheet. And I always stop whenever I look at Paolo Banchero, because without Franz Wagner, things have just changed drastically. And we have a pretty large sample over the course of this season. 462 minutes where Franz Wagner has been off the floor. We're talking a guy with only a 50.2% effective field goal percentage, a 56% true shooting, but a 34.6% usage. If you take his shooting rates over the course of the last month and then you plug him in, he projects for over 50 fantasy points. So for me, that's kind of where the major stand is at 9,200 with him. I get that it's Miami on the other side. I get that it's not an ideal matchup going up against the likes of, Bam Adebayo down underneath there, where they'll probably put some of him on him. But you get Jovic in that starting lineup. This is not a positive defender. Jaime Jaquez can be, but he's undersized. Like, there's still a very prominent upside, I think, for Paolo Banchero in this spot. And I get why people aren't getting there. It's the same reason that I'm going to talk about Jovic here on the other side, where I'm over 15% of this guy. And I know you've been overweight to him on slate, so I'm curious to see where you ended up landing on him. But the game environment sucks. It's a 219.5 total, but the salary is still 9,200, and you put a baseline of like 35% usage on Paolo Banchero, and you see an improvement to his shooting, an improvement to a 1.20 fantasy point per minute rate. He becomes a 1.3 guy really damn quickly, playing nearly 39, 40 minutes a game in competitive spots, which this projects out to be as a pick'em. So Paolo Banchero, one of my favorite tournament stands on the slate. I'm happy to be playing him in 28% of lineups.
On the Miami side, no Jimmy Butler, no Tyler Hero, no Kyle Lowry. Probable tag on Caleb Martin. Welcome back. RJ Hampton is available. I didn't really think about it up until this point. I felt like my exposures were a little low. I found them. Oh boy, did I. 15% ownership coming into Jovic, 25 to Josh Richardson, 15 to Jaime Jaquez, 10 to Duncan Robinson, and 17 to Bam Adebayo. I might need to go back to the drawing board. How much Jovic did you say you had?
A lot. I have a lot.
I have him as if he's accidentally Nikola Jokic.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, I have 34%. I wrote him up earlier today. I think he is massively underprojected in this spot. And you made the case for him a couple slates ago. I had a really good day on Wednesday, just playing a ton of him. He ended up seeing those minutes that we were looking for, 32. Now, there's two things that I don't know what the push and pull effect are going to be. And this is why I wanted to talk through this team a lot, because I am well over on Jaime Jaquez and I am well over on Nikola Jovic. I'm about the field on 17% Bam Adebayo. I have 18%. So, I'm 1% over, but I have double Jaquez. I'm over double Jovic. He's actually come up a little bit. He was sitting at around 10% earlier in the day. I think 10% was when I written my article. 14.6% is what we're looking at here now. He ended up seeing those 32 minutes, and you get Caleb Martin back. We're going to need to see this starting lineup. He started four of the last 5 games here, has Jovic. It really is going to be a volatile minutes projection, though, because you have Haywood Highsmith here, too, who you have to carve out minutes for. Kevin Love, Josh Richardson, Duncan Robinson. But I assume starting lineup, RJ Hampton, Jaquez, Martin, Jovic, Adebayo. And that, for me, just feels like you get a nothingness like RJ Hampton out on the floor as opposed to a Jimmy Butler, Kyle Lowry. Like, for me, there's a lot of ways that Jovic with power forward center has a ton of utility as a value piece, still sub 5K. People not getting there, that seems like fun to me.
I have 74.
What?
Yeah. Now that'll come down a little bit by the time we get to lock, but he's a guy that I'm getting with. I mean, they're missing so much in terms of like relevant basketball players. I think they're just going to let him rip, and he's been playing game after game after game. I'm also getting to a ton of Jaime Jaquez. I have around 50%. I've got 20% of Duncan Robinson, 25 of Josh Richardson. I do have a little bit of Bam. I will walk this back, but I am going to be getting to quite a bit of this Miami Heat team with them being shorthanded. No Butler, no Lowry, no Hero. That's a real thing.
Yeah, what's weird to me, because obviously I'm not going to play Caleb Martin at 5,900. It's just a question of like what those minutes, like, yeah, I've gone back and forth what those minutes can be here in this spot a number of times. I just kind of landed on 27. It seems like the industry consensus is 27 minutes as you're just like looking at some different places. I think being a 0.86 fantasy point per minute guy and not having Tyler Hero at 1.15, I kind of want him to play as many minutes as possible alongside Jovic and Jaquez. And I'd feel better about my exposures. Do you feel that way?
I'm a little nervous about how long he's going to be out there. I do think that there is some minutes upside. We've seen him miss 7 games and basically 8 full games since Christmas with that sprained ankle. I just don't know how long they're going to just let him go and let him rip here. I went 23 minutes. I definitely see upside to that. But at 5,900, you need every one of those minutes.
See, and I'm hoping for 30 because it's not like Caleb Martin would do enough to kill you. And I think one of the tough push and pull parts of DFS is it's like, oh, if I'm going to be overweight to Jovic and Jaquez and it ends up being Caleb Martin that gets 30 minutes and they see the minutes downside, I'm dead. But you'd want to have Caleb Martin, but you don't in this scenario. Like he's 5,900 and just priced out of the slate as is. As a 0.86 fantasy point per minute guy, 0.9 on the high end without Jimmy Butler and Tyler Hero out there. He's been a guy that's had some utility on some slates with the eligibility, but now he's power forward only 5,900. I don't have to think about him at all. But because of his baseline rates, you take Hero off, Jimmy Butler off, Kyle Lowry off, like I want him to play as many minutes as possible so that Jovic and Jaquez look even better.
We keep it moving. Portland Trailblazers, 2 touchdown dogs in Minnesota. 221 total. Here's the ownership for the Portland Trailblazers right now with DeAndre Ayton doubtful, Shaedon Sharpe out, and Jabari Walker back, probable. 6% to Anthony Simons, 1% to Thibault and Kamara. I have 6% of Simons and no one else. They look really bad against the number 1 defense in basketball.
I just want to say fuck this team. I just want to say that. Yeah. After yesterday, I'm not very happy with them. They make me very, very sad. Scoot Henderson should be out of the league tomorrow, and we should all move on with their... Actually, I don't believe that, but Scoot Henderson, the worst... I think it was the second worst plus-minus that we've had in an NBA game since you could track such things. So there you go. That seems very, very bad. What was his plus-minus from yesterday? Negative 56 was Scoot Henderson's plus-minus yesterday.
Yeah. Instead of getting the guy that could be out there and just be shit, I got Shaedon Sharpe. I played a bunch of Shaedon Sharpe. And
that was my highest. So. I had 90% of him yesterday.
Well, that's more than me, but I had well over the field. I don't have anything else to say about Portland. They look downright dreadful.
Yeah, Simons, I have a smattering of at 2%. So one share of him out of 50 lineups, and I was going through my 150. Got to him in 8% of those, but out of my top 50, yeah, just a share. Congratulations, Portland, you're terrible. This is officially the team I have the least of.
10 to 15% ownership on Rudy Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns, and Anthony Edwards. We are waiting on the news for Gobert with a Q tag. That will matter quite a bit for the rest of Minnesota. But one of my other favorite plays for today, $8,900 point guard, shooting guard, Anthony Edwards. I think he cooks these dudes. I'm 2Xing the field. Happy to have any Towns or Gobert that I can get to.
I don't know how I feel about this. So Rudy Gobert, let's just say that he's out, because I think that's the more interesting talking point. If we get him in, I think this team, you can still get to as much Cat and Rudy Gobert as you want, and then you're probably not going to get to anything else, correct? Like I don't have anything else other than those three. So
no,
if you get Gobert out, I just go back to last game. I think the biggest mistake that I made on that slate, and I don't think there's a close second, was I didn't have nearly enough Naz Reid. He ended up playing the entire overtime period, but up until that point, he didn't even close the game. He came out at the 3:22 mark, came back out for 25 seconds to try to take one shot there at the end, or to finish out that Boston game. So he played all of, you got to take off 4:15 there. So he played
like 33 in regulation.
33 minutes in regulation. I just want you to flag that, because I feel like across the industry, it wasn't us, it wasn't anybody, but across the industry, he was projected really low in terms of minutes for what it actually panned out to be. Now, if Naz Reid doesn't come out and knock down shots early, if you don't see him in the flow early, do we see those kind of minutes? No, but he's not going to lose out on rotation minutes to a Troy Brown Jr. You need to have his size on the floor. There's just lots of ways that he works out, and I feel like he's definitely the guy that I will end up jamming to some capacity. Even at 5,700, it's a spot where you could see him close if they're up 15, up 20. Like, there's a lot of ways that Naz Reid has more utility at 5,700 than I gave him credit for at the time. And I'm a Minnesota fan, so I'm supposed to be early to these kind of things. But, 26, 27 minutes is kind of what you're looking at for a baseline in the event that you have him out there, or that you have Rudy Gobert out there with a pronounced minutes upside to that. So 5,700, I'd be riding with that at a 1.05 fantasy point per minute rate for sure. So just want to have that in your back pocket, because all the things on this slate are happening within a half an hour, so we can talk a little bit more absolute about them.
Keep your eyes peeled on Live Before Lock for that one, because that Gobert news is very, very important for what's happening on this slate. Hopefully that kind of news does show up at a time where we can really deal with it. But 5 games at 8 o'clock, you're going to have plenty of you're not going to get trapped by any swaps tonight. That's impossible. So that's helpful. Final game for us. Hit that like button if you haven't done it yet. We're up over 300. No reason that can't be 400. Live Before Lock is going to finish this one off. But here, Charlotte Hornets, 2-point underdogs in San Antonio, 236 total for this one. Interesting game, that's for sure. I'm not excited for what's happening in this one, but LaMelo Ball, questionable. Cody Martin, questionable. Frank Ntilikina, questionable. PJ Washington, doubtful. Mark Williams, out. Dominic Barlow, questionable on the opposite side. It's single-digit ownership to everybody on Charlotte.
Yep.
If LaMelo Ball is in, I think you could really only play... you could only confidently play Bridges, Richards, and Rozier, and I don't think you should be playing any of them all that much. If Ball is out, then you can play quite a bit more of everybody that I just named, and Brandon Miller, and probably Cody Martin, because playing San Antonio is a good thing.
Yep, 44 fantasy points for Miles Bridges last time out. Direct leverage off of Terry Rozier. I think you on your show talked about it. You said on the transition over to Live Before Lock, talked about him being nuke of the night from that specific slate. Like, Miles Bridges is definitely the guy I'd have the most interest in the event that you didn't have LaMelo Ball playing. In the event that you do, I think he's probably the only thing I will land on period of this. I was trying to run something here in the background while you were talking to try to have something there. Seems like Nick Richards I'd still have a share or two of, so there's that. But 5,700 for him, whatever. 0.93 fantasy point per minute player, and San Antonio on the other side. Wembanyama at the 5. You don't have a backup in Zach Collins there, so Nick Richards at least has that ability to go out and smash super quick. There's maybe that, but Miles Bridges, 8,200, pretty much the only thing that I'm getting to, even with LaMelo Ball in currently in our projections.
I have nothing else to add here. We just need the news on LaMelo. I think he's going to play. So at 9,500, it kind of makes this easy. San Antonio on the other side, single digit ownership to everybody on DraftKings, but I got to give a shout out to the FanDuel people who have Devin Vassell, Jeremy Sohan, Keldon Johnson, and Trey Jones all 20 to 40% owned, depending on who's who. Trey Jones, 39% owned there. But as a DK talking point, this is pretty gross. Talk to me about Wemby.
Yeah, he's the only guy. Yeah, I want to get to a lot of Victor Wembanyama. So obviously he's not going to play on back-to-back. San Antonio plays again tomorrow. There's a couple of things that I think make me interested. For one, out of every player qualified in the NBA and every player in action, this is the guy who leads the entire league in fantasy points per minute. 1.56 over the course of this season on DraftKings. That is ridiculous. The obvious downside is that we have him in for 26 and a half minutes, and yet still putting him in for 26 and a half, 27 minutes, which I think is kind of like the high-end result, barring overtime or something. I'm getting to him as a baseline player of 1.7 fantasy points per minute against Charlotte here in this spot. And that just has me playing way more than the field has of him, 4.6%. He was earlier in the day. Let me take a look. He was the most positively leveraged spend up. It's actually Miles Bridges on the other side now amongst the spend ups that's the most positively leveraged in the boom bust tool. But Victor Wembanyama is one of those guys that it's, frustrating when you know that there is a major downside if he doesn't get out and go crazy early on. But last time out, 50 and a half fantasy points without a steal or a block. Sure, 16, 12, and 10 sneaks the triple-double. That'll do, Pig. That'll do. But Victor Wembanyama, 9,100. It's an obvious spot to just get different on a slate where, you find that one piece of contrarianism, and Victor Wembanyama with power forward eligibility is that for me.
I would love to have him. I don't, but it would be awesome because he's
anything
really
else from
fun.
San Antonio?
I've got 8% of Vassell. That's about it.
Yeah. See, I'm not getting to anything else from San Antonio.
I hate that I'm not getting to it. Like it's pretty irritating to not get to a team that I think is good. Or like for a DFS game.
For DFS.
Charlotte, San Antonio, like this should be a DFS wonderland, but unfortunately it's not.
Trey Jones starting is a disaster for DFS.
It is.
Yeah.
We done here, man. 8 games up, 8 games down. Live before lock coming up next. I got nothing to add. Do you?
No, but pay attention. Nas Reed could be a lot of fun.
Thank you guys for joining us. Hit the like button on the way out the door. NBA Live before lock coming up next. BetMGM. Sign up.
What is happening, everybody? It is Friday, almost the weekend. But before we get there, we have to break down tonight's NBA DFS slate. And it's an interesting one because since the late games are left off the slate, we've got a really condensed slate. It's going to be fun to sweat because all of the games are starting within a half hour of each other. We've got one key piece of news we're waiting on. That is Rudy Gobert, who's listed as questionable to play. So we'll see what ends up happening with his status. We're sponsored by BetMGM, and they've got a great deal for you guys because you sign up at BetMGM using the link we have below. You bet $5, just a $5 bet after signing up with our link, and they're going to give you $158 in bonus bets, Matt. This is the easiest money anybody can make. You'd have to be an idiot to not take advantage of this. So take advantage of it if you guys have not already and you're in a legal betting state. Sign up at BetMGM using that link we have below. And if you or anybody know has a gambling problem, call or text the number 1-800-GAMBLER. Matt Belman, how are you doing tonight, man?
I'm good, man. Good to see you. Good. Excited for our weekly show. I appreciate you dressing up for me. I was going to ask you why you're looking so dapper.
I am wearing a fuzzy fleece. That's about it. It is not fancy. I think I got this for $12 at Costco.
Well, it looked good. It looks good.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's mostly for warmth. So it is a little bit colder out these days. Not quite as cold as it's going to be in Kansas City for tomorrow's football game. You seen it's like negative 30 degrees.
Yeah, so cold there. It's frigid here. I'm sure it's similar here where it is where you're at. It's just so cold this time of year.
Yeah, so that's about the length of the dressing up I do. I head to Costco. I get a shirt for $12 that keeps me warm, and then I look nice for you on the show. I'm curious what it is that Eric usually wears when he's on the shows with you. You're impressed with a $12 fleece. Is he just naked on the shows? Because that is, we've told him that that's against the terms and conditions around here. But every once in a while, he doesn't listen to some of those things. Why he's been suspended multiple times for some indiscretions around here. But yeah, this is just a nice little cheap fleece from Costco. Costco, not a sponsor of the show, but is where I do almost all of my shopping for everything: shoes, socks, underwear, clothes, food. It's all available at Costco in bulk. So guys, go check that out as well. So let's go ahead and see what it is that we are getting in the Discord as well as the YouTube. Any questions? Really quick, I want to ask you, Jacob, the super chats that are sitting here, are they existing from last show or are they from this, or are they for this show? Okay, so the last thing that was answered was Levine. So we'll start with a super chat here from David Eckenrode. So I'm going to assume that this was a question that was directed at Eric as a bit of a troll for the last show, but it doesn't mean that we can't tackle it here, Matt Belman, because David wants to know who is the exotic play of the night. So you could take this however you want. I'm not going to force you to play a white guy like we do with Eric here. You can pick anybody. Who's the exotic play of the night? Defined however it is you decide.
He's not white, but he's light-skinned at least. And when I think about the exotic play, I think about like on out there, off the board play. Give me Anthony Simons as my exotic play of the night. And just because you shouted them out, I have to say my wife is a huge Costco head also.
So here's the big thing with Costco. There is nothing that establishes you as my ascent into a middle-aged white man than the amount that I enjoy Costco. If I'm out of shit, I'm like, fuck yeah, I get to go to Costco. Like, it's exciting to me. That's a good day if I'm going to Costco. The lines, I'm excited to wait online at Costco. You get to see what other people have in their giant shopping carts. It's a good time heading to Costco. That's the way I like to spend my afternoons. So for me, exotic play of the day. Let's see, which way do I want to go here? Boy, there are a number of different directions. I'm going to go with, for myself, Tyrese Maxey. He's projected for modest ownership in the teens here. And there's kind of this narrative. I see it in our Discord too, where people will say, Tyrese Maxey, no good with Joel Embiid off the court. I don't know where this came from, that people just assume that Tyrese Maxey is not getting any kind of like real boost with Embiid off the court. It's absolutely not true. He absolutely sees a usage boost. He has to play more minutes in a lot of these competitive games as well, because they don't have a lot of players who can create their own offense when Joel Embiid is off the court. We just saw DeJounte Murray not a DeJounte Murray. I meant to say Tyrese Maxey go for like 1 billion fantasy points literally 1 billion. And it would have been 2 billion if he didn't foul out in overtime. So Tyrese Maxey, he's in about half my lineups when the field's only rostering him in the teens. That is somebody that I like getting overweight too. Do you find yourself getting to Maxey tonight?
Yeah, Maxey looks really good here. There are a bunch of good spend up options. So like if I don't end up playing Maxey, because I'm just playing one lineup here, it has nothing to do with Maxey himself. It has everything to do with other really good plays on this slate. He obviously gets a huge boost with no Embiid. I mean, he's become like that guy. Like when I think of Embiid without Maxey, I think of like a 50 DraftKings point guy. And like that's right where he's projected at.
Yeah. Yeah. So Tyrese Maxey. Then there's also a good amount of upside there as well when it comes to Maxey. And we've got another super chat here. This one is from Sean. Sean is saying, hey, gents, best value plays on DK per position. Per position. So we have to go position by position to figure out the best value play. And however you want to take it. If there's somebody you really like as a points per dollar play, that could be the answer. If it's a punt play that you like, that also works. So let's start with this from Sean. And at point guard, Matt, we'll go back and forth. You don't have to give me all five at once. But starting at point guard, who do you consider the best value play at point guard for DK tonight?
I think Dejounte Murray, just too cheap. Good spot against Indiana. Looks really good from a dollar for dollar perspective.
I agree with that. I think Dejounte Murray is the best looking point guard that we have today. And there aren't really that many point guard options that I'm looking at for the slate and really feel great about more on the cheaper end. But certainly one guy who I do like at the cheaper range there is going to be Dejounte Murray. But you have a shooting guard.
See, this is where honestly, when I said this, I think Murray might slot in at shooting guard because I honestly think the best overall play at point guard is Maxey.
Yeah, so my point guard exposures, it is Maxey 1, is Dejounte Murray 2. So I don't disagree with you there at all. If I'm going to add somebody else to the mix here at shooting guard, though, I'm going to go to Josh Richardson at $4,700. Part of this is because there just isn't a ton of great value in general on this slate as far as cheap guys that I really feel decent about. But we do have Josh Richardson benefiting from the Heat being shorthanded. If we look at their injury report as per usual, Jimmy Butler is on the Jimmy Butler. Does he ever play anymore? I can't remember the last time we've done a slate that Jimmy Butler's been on.
The funny thing is he's only missed 5 straight games. I think he must have missed a bunch, played one, and then now has missed a bunch again. Yeah, he's been out for a while. I mean, I will say I know you hate on him a lot, but it's crazy. I don't know of any athlete in the history of like sports since, and I'm obviously been following sports forever, that goes from being so just like good in the regular season, but like nothing special to an absolute monster, like top 5 player in the league in the playoffs. It's wild.
There's funny. I actually have another example of a current player who's kind of been like that lately. Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray, the last few seasons, like he's not built for the regular season. And that's kind of like a weird way to frame it. But he just has so many injury issues that the extra time off that the playoffs affords, I think just sets up better for Jamal Murray than the regular season because he deals with so many soft tissue issues. When we see the regular season, like how many hamstring issues have we seen him go through for the last few years? So that's another guy that I kind of grouped through it, who the grind of the regular season really wears them down. But then when you get some of that extra rest in the playoffs, they seem to play a lot better. Jamal Murray and Jimmy Butler both fall into that category. By the way, as for Butler, because you mentioned it before, Butler missed 5 games, came back, played 1 game, only played half the game, got hurt, and now he's out for another. Was this his 6th consecutive missed game here? So yeah, he's played in like one of the last 11 games now, Jimmy Butler, because he's one of the softest players in the league. But that benefits Josh Richardson for tonight's slate. Small forward. Who are you liking at small forward?
At small forward, it's DeMar DeRozan for me.
So for me, at small forward, I'm going to be going with Azur Thompson. So Azur Thompson is, first of all, it makes no sense the Pistons aren't playing him more minutes because this team is terrible. They're not going anywhere. Thompson is somebody who he is no jump shot right now, but he's clearly a talented young player that has actual upside. And you would think that as the Pistons continue to lose more and more games and they have zero hopes for the playoffs this year, why are you not playing the guy that you invested a good amount of draft capital in? Now, there's another thing to this that I don't know if this is the reason why, but I have a suspicion it is. Who are the Pistons playing tonight, Matt?
Houston, so the brothers.
The last time we saw Thompson play over 20 minutes, Thompson has only played over 20 minutes once in the last month. And it was a game against the Houston Rockets where he played 24 minutes. Now, I know it's kind of a dumb narrative, but I actually do think because it's the brothers playing against each other that they're a little bit more apt to give him extra minutes.
I don't hate it. I'm with you that like it makes no sense why they're not giving him more minutes. But then I think about it. The Pistons are trying to win, right?
Apparently, they actually are, though, which the most upsetting thing about their
Yes.
losing streak is the fact that they are actually like there's rumors which like they're trying to make calls about Pascal Siakam. Why? Because they are actually trying to avoid having the worst record in NBA history.
Can you imagine being like a good veteran like that, getting the call, you're getting traded to Detroit?
Just because they're desperate to win 11 games this year so that they don't go in the history books with the worst record ever. Well, anyway, small forward, I'm going to go with Azur Thompson. If people are wondering why Azur Thompson, it's because most of the cheap options today are shitty, and he's priced so far down now on DraftKings, all the way down to 3,600. So I do think he's reached a floor price where we can consider getting to him. Power forward, what do you have for value for us at the power forward spot?
Give me Nicholas Batum.
All right. So for me at power forward, I am going to. I mean, if we said that we're going to consider DeJounte Murray value at 7,200, I'm going to cheat and say Tobias Harris's value at 7,200.
Yeah, I'm with that.
So Tobias,
there's just a bunch of guys I like with Tobias Harris. Like Jalen Johnson's the same price. I'm not even sure who I like more.
And now let's go and look ahead to the centers. And most of my center exposure actually is fairly pricey, guys. But is there anything you like on the more cheap end, Matt?
Yeah, I like Kevon Looney at 3,700.
Okay, so for me at center, I am going to go with Trey Lyles at 3,700, is making it into some of my lineup. So Trey Lyles, power forward and center eligibility at 3,700. That's the guy I'm going with there. The next questions that we're getting to here in the super chats. This next one is coming to us from Ace of Spade, which means he's asking us about DK tiers, Matt. So I've got tiers lineups built here, and I'll go tier by tier, starting with tier 1. That is Domantas Sabonis for me. Tier 2, there's so many good options, but I'm going to go with Paulo Banchero. Tier 3 is Bam Adebayo. Tier 4 is currently Şengün, but Gobert is questionable. If Gobert is ruled out, then I'd prefer Karl-Anthony Towns in tier 4. Tier 5, Fred VanVleet. And then tier 6 is Nikola Vucevic, who's no longer dealing with any kind of minutes restrictions, is now back in the starting lineup. Phil Senzig is saying, if the Charlotte guys are out, are we smashing in everyone? If the Charlotte guys are out, who is it that you're anticipating to be out from Charlotte that would like massively change the slate?
I mean, probably LaMelo and Martin, but no, those guys have been out, and I think they're going to play.
And LaMelo's probable. Cody Martin is questionable. Even if Cody Martin's out, the team's so the team is priced for both LaMelo Ball and Cody Martin to be out. Even if Cody Martin is out, it's not going to make a difference because he's got LaMelo Ball back, who's clearly a much bigger impact on playing time and usage and all of that. So no, I find Charlotte to not be a massively appealing team to get to. Is there anybody that you are eyeing from Charlotte? I'm going to pull them up here, but I don't think this is a team that, I don't have exposure to them really.
No, same. The only thing I'll say about Charlotte is LaMelo being back obviously hurts median outcomes because like they're not going to have the ball in their hands, et cetera, et cetera. But it also like improves the chances of Charlotte just scoring a shit ton of points, which in that case, like sure, Bridges and or Rozier could still get there, but they're just, priced too expensive for their median outcomes now.
People in the chat are saying that LaMelo is questionable. I pulled up the injury report and he's listed as probable.
He was at shoot around also. He's been practicing like for a little bit now. I expect him to play.
See, people are saying according to Underdog, I don't see that either. I see that he's a game time decision. I don't see anywhere that he's questionable though. I haven't seen anywhere that he's questionable. So probable. I haven't seen anything other than probable. So game time decision, by the way, doesn't mean anything other than when the decision is going to come out. So if you're a game time, you could be probable in a game time decision. You could be questionable in a game time decision or doubtful in a game time decision. LaMelo is probable in a game time decision. Let's see what else we have as far as super chats are concerned. And then also we'll go into the Discord and see what kind of questions you guys have in there. And if you guys want to sign up to any stochastic package. It's going to get you access to our Discord channel. I'm in there all the time answering questions. And whenever there's any kind of late news after the slate, locks, but maybe post-lock, those kinds of things, I'm in there telling people how I'm updating my lineups when new starting lineups come out or players get ruled out. And the easiest way to get access to our Discord channel is sign up with any links we have below. You can sign up for the lineup generator package, one of the Sims packages, our data packages. And then also, there's a new deal we have going on right now, Matt, for the NFL playoffs. So if you guys want to get access to our Sims tool for the rest of the NFL playoffs, it's $100 for the rest of the playoffs, actually below $100 for the rest of the playoffs, all the way through the Super Bowl. We brought the price down considering there's less games on the slates now. And in addition to that, we're also giving people a free trial. Anybody who has access to our NFL Sims Max package, they get access to our PGA Sims tools as well. So it's going to cover you all through this weekend of PGA as well as next week's event. So through January 21st, PGA tools are free for anybody who has the NFL package. All you have to do is sign up using the link below. We got a promo code DRIVE, DRIVE, less than $100, free trial of the PGA tools, as well as NFL Sims Max for the rest of the season. James Magruder wants to know best play at each position and overall our favorite value play. Let's start with favorite value play. Is there one guy that you are eyeing as your favorite overall value on the slate?
Not really, but if I have to answer that question, the first guy that comes to mind is Cam Whitmore. Thought there was a chance he could start today. He's not. It's a great spot against Detroit. They play a big game tomorrow in Boston. Ime Udoka's return. I could see Whitmore squeezing in a few more minutes here, regardless of how this game plays out, and especially in a blowout type scenario. So he's my guy there. I just wish he were still in the 3Ks. He's not, but that's what DraftKings been doing lately. How about you?
I'm getting to some Cam Whitmore. I also have a good chunk of Azur Thompson, who I brought up before. So I'm gonna stick with Thompson here as my favorite cheap value option. And as far as best plays at each position, a lot of this is going to be similar to the guys that we had pointed out before. But for me at point guard, it's Tyrese Maxey. How about yourself at point guard?
The best play, or what is this question?
Just player that we like the most at each position. Salary doesn't matter. Shooting guard, DeJounte Murray.
Same.
Small forward, I'll go with Azur Thompson.
Small forward, I'll go with DeRozan.
Power forward, Tobias Harris.
Power forward for me, Jalen Johnson.
And then center, Şengün.
Sabonis. So there's a lot of good options, all in that range, because I think Sabonis, Bam, or Şengün are all really similar plays. Do you agree?
Sabonis, Sabonis, Şengün, and Bam, was it you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think they're all really strong options. The one thing that gets me to a little bit less of Sabonis than the other guys is just his price point.
Yeah.
Right, because we've got Sabonis is at 10-2, whereas both Adebayo and Şengün are sub 9K. They don't project as well as Sabonis, but the salary savings are definitely needed on this slate where people are like, oh, why are you playing Azur Thompson? It's because, guys, the value sucks tonight. So you're trying to make a case for some guys who we have Thompson project for 19 fantasy points. That's enough for me to get to him in, a third of my lineups today. So that's the reason why. It's those cheap guys are not super appealing for today. We have to play some of them. And that's where the, $1,400 salary savings from Bam to Sabonis or the $1,800 from Şengün to Sabonis, why get more of them than him? See what we have next. Mixed Stars online left us a super chat. No question there. So let me see if there's a question. Didn't leave anything else. Mixed Stars, if you have a question, just throw it into the YouTube chat. You don't have to leave us another super chat, and I will be looking for it and answering it. But if you just wanted to leave us some money, we thank you for the support and thank you for the super chat. Chris Williams, who gifted us out 5 YouTube memberships, and in addition to that, left us a super chat. Chris, as always, thanks for the support. And the easiest way for everybody to support the channel is just to like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Then Chris's question is, great show like always. Do you mind breaking down favorite captain plays for the Nuggets showdowns? And it looks like everyone on New Orleans is now probable. Yeah, so we did have earlier in the day, it was Zion was questionable. Ingram was questionable at one point, but now no concerns, right? Because we got Trey Murphy's probable. CJ McCollum's probable. Ingram's probable. Zion is also probable. I'm going to run some lineups really quickly here for that. And then I'm going to get back to your question after I'm done running these lineups, Chris. So just be like 2 questions, and then I'll get back to you on that. In the interim, we have not had any breaking NBA news other than, Frank Ntilikina is out today. I didn't even realize that he was still playing in the league. Can't remember the last time there was a slate where he was relevant. But let's go into Discord and see what questions are popping up in there for us. First one here is from Kapanakella, who's asking, who's somebody that we like in a single entry? Who's a single entry specific play that we like more so than as a large field tournament option?
I'm going to say, like, for like, this question can be answered in so many different ways, right? Like, because single entry in a lot of ways is just an extension of multi-entering if you're multi-entering. For me, I'm going to say Simons. Like, it's risky for sure, but I really like him, and no one's going to be on him in those type of contests.
Oh, by the way, somebody did just mention, a lot of people mentioned actually, Kelly Oubre was ruled out in between us answering questions. I just saw that come across in Discord. So let's talk about some of the implications of that. Kelly Oubre is out, and there is somebody who you already mentioned you liked before that I think is going to look even better now, which is Nick Batum. I don't know how much more I could like Tyrese Maxey. I already liked Maxey a lot, and now this is likely going to be even more usage of Tobias Harris, Tyrese Maxey solidified. They look even better now, in addition to the fact that we're going to be getting probably some extra minutes here from Kelly Oubre. But is there anybody else do you think that we should be looking at more from the 76ers? We did just get a projections update 29 seconds ago, Jake, if you wouldn't mind throwing that on screen, and I'll look at some of the results here as well. And yeah, so already like Tyrese Maxey, already like Tobias Harris. That doesn't change. I do think this solidifies the minutes of Paul Reed a little bit as well. I see we've got Paul Reed now in for 27 minutes and project for just over 30 fantasy points. On the cheap end, yeah, guys like Nick Batum, Marcus Morris, they look a little bit better. But primarily, it's guys that we already liked. I think we like a little bit more now. There's not somebody I wasn't considering before that all of a sudden now makes it into lineups.
Yeah, I agree with that, but it does make everyone else like look a little bit better for sure. What about DeAnthony Melton? Is he on a minutes limit?
So there's no like real hard minutes limit on DeAnthony Melton, but he is priced at 6,500 and he hasn't played well enough to warrant the team giving him extra minutes.
That's fair, but if there was like a guy that I think gets the biggest bump, I think it's him.
Let's see. Melton, recent games here. Last game, he played 21 coming back from injury. Last game, even when he was healthy, he played 26. I don't think he wouldn't be like a core play for me, but I think you could reason that he's worth a flyer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with that. I do think there's variability in his minutes. We have him in for 29 minutes right now. But if you told me that he played 33, 34 tonight, I wouldn't be shocked by that.
And he's definitely too expensive. Another guy too expensive for his median outcome, but like he's got upside in this matchup at that price point.
It's going to be a high-paced game against the Kings. That's for sure. You talked me into it a little bit. I'm going to rerun lineups in a second here, and I'll give a little ROI boost to DeAnthony Melton. So I make sure he gets into some lineups here. I think that's a good call by you. There's definitely variability in that playing time. Boyle 5,000 is asking, have we thought about what is this question? All right, I don't even understand what Boyle's question is here about Eric's characters and something with Spags involved. I'll have to look at this in more depth later, Boyle. But thank you for the suggestion. I'll check it out after this. Mr. Westy is asking us, Nembhard or Bruce Brown for a DK GPP? Do you prefer Nembhard or Bruce Brown tonight?
I really like Josh's Nembhard breakdown when we talked about it this morning. I'm still going to go Bruce Brown, but I like the idea of being over the field on Nembhard.
So to me for this slate, if it had to be one, it's Bruce Brown, but I'm not prioritizing getting to either. They've both been priced up at this point. I know that Bruce Brown had that other crazy game the other day. Tyrese Halliburton's out. That does benefit him. If it has to be one, it's going to be Bruce Brown, but neither of these are guys that I'm dying to play for this particular slate. So that's the way that I'm looking at it. The starting lineup for the 76ers, by the way, Maxey, Melton, Harris, Batum, and Reed. So I do think Nick Batum is looking like somebody who you were already talking about liking before as a cheap option. It's looking even better now that he's in the starting lineup.
For sure.
Next question is from the process. Wants to know, what are my feelings on Alex Caruso? So Caruso is somebody who I am getting into lineups, but he is the first guy who is going to probably start to fall by the wayside for me, considering some of the Sixers value that just opened up. And then also, if Rudy Gobert ends up getting ruled out and more value opens up there, it's just, he's one of the first guys that starts to fall out of lines. He's a serviceable value piece, but is more on the flimsy side.
Here's my overall question for you on this slate, like overarching question, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
All the games, I love this. It's like a sprint slate. They start between 7:30. They either start at 7:30 or 8. But half the games start at 8, or less than half of the games. I think only a couple start at 8. And the biggest news is from Minnesota. We might not get that news till like 7:30.
So there's only 3 games that lock at 7:30. We've got most of the games that are at 8.
So most of them are at 8, but there's some good ones at 7:30, like the Kings game and the Pacers game. So I got the numbers wrong, but I think a lot of people are going to have spots used. Do you not?
There will be, but just because the majority of the games do lock at 8 as opposed to 7:30, it's not going to be that hard to navigate the lineups. It's a very condensed slate with the games locking kind of at similar times.
I agree. I take it back.
All right, let's see what else we have here as far as the super chats go. And we've got a bit that's being coined here, Matt. We've got from Phil Senzig. He wants to know who is the okay, so it's both of us. It's the Berg Belman double blast of the night, also Barlow. Boy, if we're ever making a gangbang film, we know what it's being called now.
Wait, what was the Barlow part?
It's just a throw, and he wants to know our thoughts on Barlow.
Oh, okay. It wasn't like part of it.
Yeah, no. This was like a separate question. It was a follow-up question. So he wants to know who we're double blasting tonight, and then he wants to know what we think about Barlow. So who are you double blasting tonight?
Since I gave Simons as the exotic, I'm going to give Anthony Edwards as the Super Soaker double blast.
Oh, the Super Soaker double blast. Let's see. Which way do I want to go? I'm going to go with Nick Batum here. Because he's somebody who, kind of interesting. If he ends up fucking me instead, it wouldn't totally be surprising because he's Nick Batum.
Right.
Nick Batum. Let's go with Nick Batum. I think he's a top value option now. Somebody to work into lineups. Almost Made. So we got Almost Made has left us a super chat, and pretty frequently. I know who Dan is. He always is asking me about FanDuel questions on Twitter and DM me from time to time. And he would like to know my favorite players at each position on FanDuel. And yes, I could go over that as well. So FanDuel point guard, that is going to be Tyrese Maxey. By the way, do you have FanDuel lineups built or just DraftKings?
Just DraftKings.
Cool. I'll just run through this then. So at point guard, that is going to be Tyrese Maxey. Shooting guard, Benedict Mathurin. Small forward, that is Nick Batum. Power forward, Domantas Sabonis. Center would also be Sabonis, so I'm going to go with Bam Adebayo. Sabonis is much easier to get to, in my opinion, on FanDuel than DraftKings. Not that he's unplayable on DraftKings or anything, but the fact that he's power forward eligibility on FanDuel in addition to the center eligibility really gives us some extra utility here. Let's see what else we have coming in here. Corey Randall wants to know, will Conchar get run like the last game with all of the Memphis injuries? I doubt it. So if you remember the Memphis Grizzlies last game, and I'll pull up the box score from it so I can go over everybody's minutes from that game.
Kevin Knox starting.
We've got Kevin Knox starting for that stupid Pistons team.
Yep.
Good. You got to get, because of course, if you're trying to save your season, you go to Kevin Knox, the man who's won so bad. He broke the 538 model, and they said his fair NBA compensation was negative $170 million or something like that.
Come on, man. He's only been on like his 5th team in a year.
Clearly the way to save your season. So anyway, the question about John Conchar. So here's what happened with Conchar last game. First off, the game was a blowout. The Grizzlies somehow, with everybody out, ended up winning by 17 points, which ended up contributing to blowout run for John Conchar. But also keep in mind, very, very important, Jaren Jackson Jr. didn't play last game, and he's going to be playing tonight. that is going to be a massive difference why John Conchar is not likely to play the sim minutes in this slate that he did the last time we saw him. Garrett Skiba says he is missing Eric owning Greg. Sir, Garrett, this is not something that's ever happened. I will say I was very unhappy with how happy Eric was the last time we did a show together the other day, because Lee was on, and also we were going to have Lee on the show today, but I didn't realize that with Jacob producing instead of Jordan tonight, there was going to be other, because I don't know any of the ins and outs of production. I didn't realize that there was actually going to be like loopholes that were involved in this in terms of getting like 3 people on at once. So that was my mess up for not getting Lee on today. But Eric was so fired up that Lee was on the show the other day. Gave him like a confidence that I did not feel great about. So I'm going to have to make sure to keep that in check there. But Garrett, thank you for the super chat. Jamie Bloss wants to know thoughts on TJ McConnell. Too expensive now.
Just the other players at his price point, I like way more personally.
Too expensive, and the playing time hasn't been there.
Who do you like more now, Knox or Asar Thompson?
What's the price point on Knox?
3,900.
Let's see. Did we do projections update for Knox being in the starting lineup yet? I guess if it has to be one, I'll lean towards Knox because he's starting.
Yeah.
I don't feel great about it. He's Kevin Knox. But he is starting. Thompson's coming off the bench. So if it's 1v1, and also something to note, Thompson is cheaper. So if we're just talking about, we don't care about the salaries, just who do we think should be better, I would go with Kevin Knox at this point. The Dudes Shop 88 wants to know Jalen Johnson or Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris, especially now that Kelly Oubre is out.
Yeah, I guess it's Harris. I like both though a lot.
All right, let's see what the next question is here in Discord. Let's start to run through some of these. We've got questions here from making sure that there's not a miss. A lot of them just came in like really quickly in succession here. Sniffs wants to know, is Melton in play now that Oubre is out? Yes, I think Matt astutely pointed that out before, that there is more upside in minutes for Melton than maybe I initially thought there. And then Mr. Cool Cam wants to know favorite players at each position on FanDuel. Yeah, ran through that just a second ago, but I'll do it again right here. Point guard, Tyrese Maxey. Shooting guard, Benedict Mathurin. Small forward, Nick Batum. Power forward, Domantas Sabonis. Center, Bam Adebayo. And then Sniffs wants to know, what are our thoughts on Marcus Morris? I prefer Batum to Morris, but Morris is also a serviceable punt. But I think Batum is somebody you should be clicking first.
I agree.
All right, let's see what else we have here. This one is from Melissa H. She wants to know if she's getting too much of a Zur Thompson. Thompson showing up in like a little bit more than half of her lineups. I think he's a good GPP play. There's also Kevin Knox to consider as well. So Melissa, if you rerun your lineups, you're going to get to some of Knox now as well, I assume, which is going to bring down some of that Thompson exposure. But I don't have a problem with him. By the way, shout out to Melissa, because I want to read this out. She left us a nice tweet the other day. Melissa's tweet, finding it on Twitter here. Here it is. All right. So Melissa won a tournament the other day. Shout out to Melissa. And she had sent us a message on Twitter, said, I took down the Minimax tonight. Big shout out to Stochastic. When the new Sims tools came out, she thought it wasn't for her and said she could not have been more wrong. And she's happy to admit it after winning a tournament the other day. So shout out to Melissa for giving the Sims tools a try. I know it's like a much different process for a lot of people, but won a tournament the other day. So love to see it. And any of you want to sign up, could use the link below. But I don't have an issue with you getting to a good amount of Azure Thompson as a contrarian play there. And then also, the Barlow question. I forgot about that point before. Somebody brought that up in the chat that we didn't answer the Barlow part of the super chat from before. He is not somebody I'm getting exposure to.
Same. Just not really the slate for it, but it's not like I think he's a bad player or anything. I was just thinking this as you were talking. We've had this the past couple of days, and it's again true tonight. There's a lot of good plays on this slate. Like, there just are.
Ones, though.
Not cheap ones, but DraftKings has, like, I feel like a couple weeks ago, guys like Tobias Harris and Jalen Johnson would be in the 8Ks. Dejounte Murray, like I think the mid tier has been like shrunken down a little bit. So it's easier to get to that range.
Let's see what else we have as far as questions go. We got a super chat from Sam. He wants to know, is a head-to-head Batum or Cam Whitmore? This is an interesting one. I'm going to go with Batum now that we know that he's starting and that Kelly Oubre is out. You mentioned liking Cam Whitmore before, but you also said you liked Batum a little bit. Batum or Whitmore? Sam's only looking to play one of them. Which way do you lean?
I think Batum definitely projects better, but Whitmore has more upside. Like, if Whitmore can somehow get into minutes, like, he's just got more upside than Batum. So, like, in a 1v1, I'm taking Batum, knowing that, Whitmore has higher upside, in my opinion, at least.
Master P728 wants to know if he should be playing a good amount of Patrick Williams. He's saying that Patrick Williams is showing up in a bunch of his lineups. And let's see, Patrick Williams. So Patrick Williams is somebody who I think has now been supplanted by the likes of Kevin Knox. I'd rather play Azur Thompson. I'd rather play Marcus Morris. I'd rather play Nick Batum. So at that price point, I do think there's a handful of guys that make more sense.
I'm with it.
The next question that we have here is there's a question about Caruso. We hit on that. We've got Rocky Raccoon 7 wants to know how many blocks for the French Jacob Laravia today. He's back. I'm going to go 0.
He ain't playing. I mean,
is the Jacob is breast size or something? What does the Jacob mean? Because his name is Jacob. He spelled it out Jacob. Misunderstood. Okay. That's it. Has Jacob, has anybody ever spelled your name that way before? J/cup? All right. So there we go. Rocky Raccoon 7. I learned something new. New way to spell Jacob today. Mr. Westry wants to know Nembhard or Bruce Brown for a DK GPP. I feel like this question came up before from somebody else as well, but Bruce Brown for me.
Same.
Now we've got Jake DW7 wants to know, can we play Lyles and Sabonis in the same lineup? Absolutely. Considering the price point of Lyles, there's no real conflict there.
Definitely not.
And the next question, we got a super chat from James Magruder, $5,800 or less for guard. And he wants to know, is Looney okay for cash? I would not play Looney in a cash game. $5,800 or less for guard. You can roster any guard for $5,800 or less. Who are you going to, Matt?
Any guard for 5,800 or less. I am going to go with, man, it drops off after that, but I guess Bruce Brown.
Yeah, I'm looking through right now, and we get these questions all the time, and it's always difficult because I understand, like, you don't want to tell somebody to change their entire lineup or anything, but it's always because people build these lineups and they kind of get stuck at a spot where there aren't great options. And I mean, unfortunately, the answer for me is Killian Hayes. I don't feel great about him, but I do think he's the guy. Yeah, I'm going to go with Killian Hayes here. Final answer, Killian Hayes. Wouldn't play Looney in cash, though, James. No Looney for me in cash. Next question here is coming to us from The Process. Wants to know, why are people playing Josh Richardson? Also, why are my notifications showing up out of order in Discord now? But why is Josh Richardson getting exposure today? Because there's a bunch of guys out for the Heat, in particular, Jimmy Butler again.
Yep.
Next question here is Tim Lee wants to know, are there any flag plays? Is there a guy that we're planning our flag in today?
Well, I'm playing one lineup, so everyone I play, I'm planning my flag on. So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna just go back and say it's Simons. If Portland can keep this game competitive, it's because of Simons, and I think they're in a good situational spot, to be perfectly honest. Like, doesn't mean I think they're going to win the game or even cover, because we know how fast teams can score in the NBA, but they're facing a Minnesota team that just played overtime in Boston and is coming home from like a long road trip. And Portland played last night and got thoroughly embarrassed. So I imagine that they come out with a little pep in their step tonight. And Simons was awful in the first half. Really had a strong third quarter, made like 3 or 4 threes. And I think he picks that right off. So give me Simons.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Tyrese Maxey. I am doing a final update to my lineups here, and I assume he's going to be my most rostered spend up option by a pretty good margin now, particularly with the latest news of Kelly Oubre being out on the team. So that's the way I like going, is to Tyrese Maxey. Already liked him before, but I like him even more now. So that's going to be my flag plan.
You know who else I like is De'Aaron Fox, opposite Maxey.
In the same lineups, or just kind of like in a general?
I like them better in the same lineup, but I don't think it matters.
Did I have Fox before? I think I had like 10% of Fox or something like that.
He looks good from a leverage perspective. He's not in good form right now, but he's like a week and a half removed from having upside, so I'm not worried about it.
Right. Let's see if there was any super chats that came in, and nope, we've answered all of the super chats so far. So let's go back into Discord here. And also, if you guys haven't done it yet, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and also don't forget about our Drive promo. If you want access to our NFL Sims Max package for the rest of the NFL playoffs, less than $100, and that also is going to come with a totally free access to our PGA Sims tool through January 21st. So try those tools out before the PGA season really kicks off, and find out if it's something that's right for you. It's really helped me improve my PGA process, because you know what my process was before, Matt? It was just being shit at PGA DFS and not knowing what I'm doing. Now I just build lineups in the Sims, and I've been pretty profitable over the last year, and I was not at PGA before that. So
seems like a better way to do it.
Advantage of it. We've got Cream wants to know my top DK pick 6 picks. So we've gotten these questions a little bit, and we do want to start doing more pick 6 content. It is hard for me as of right now because I don't have access to it from New Jersey. If I click on it, I can't even access it because I'm location restricted. So Cream, if you want to, the best chance for an answer, tag Eric Lindquist in Discord. And Eric could help you with that, because I know Eric plays the pick 6. I just can't from New Jersey, and I can't even see what the lines are. So I don't have a good way to answer that for you. Nicola9292 wants to know Cam Whitmore or Haywood Highsmith. That is Whitmore for me.
Definitely Whitmore for me.
Now let's see what else we have in here. And also anything that's showing up in as far as the updates have gone that is giving you any kind of exposure or making you think about a player you hadn't thought about earlier in the show?
The guy that I'm thinking about and I was just looking into is Asar Thompson. Like, he's still coming in with leverage. We project him for we project him to be optimal 25% of the time this slate plays out, coming in with 21% ownership. I don't see that. Like, now that he's not starting, I think his ownership's going to come down. And I like him as, like, he's 3,600. So I get it. He's coming off the bench, but he doesn't need to do that much. So I like that call that you made earlier.
Were you ever expecting him to start?
No, but I wasn't necessarily expecting, like, I didn't know. I mean, I think that was a reasonable option with no Bogdanovic. He had started earlier in the year. Mm-hmm. I just didn't know where they were going to go.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair way to think about it. I wasn't expecting Knox to start. I thought Thompson could start. I didn't think it was a lock or anything like that. But at the very least, he picks up extra minutes in the absence of Bogdanovic. And there is the dumb fact that he's playing his brother on the other side of the game. This team doesn't have shit to play for. And that's the only time he's played over 20 minutes in the last month. Maybe it was a coincidence, but I find it hard to believe that he just coincidentally played like his most minutes in a month in the game he happened to play against his brother. I think it was something the team actively tried to do. And they have an excuse to do it again today with the fact that the team is shorthanded and Bogdanovic is out. This team is just playing for this. I don't understand this team at all, but whatever. Neither here nor there. I like Thompson today. Next question to us is coming from Four Prong Digger, who wants to know top 2 single entry centers. That's Şengün and Bam for me.
I'm going to throw Sabonis in that mix.
In place of who?
Oh, he's just said top 2.
Yeah, just wants to know if he's playing two centers today in a single entry. Who should he go with? And so I'm answering that if I could just play like any 2 centers, considering what my exposure is, I would be going to Bam and to Şengün.
Okay, well, I'm going to switch it up completely then. I'm going to say Looney and Sabonis.
Okay. Ooh, Looney and Sabonis. So somebody before asked about Looney in a cash game. Would you be okay with Looney in cash then?
Probably not. I mean, I view single entries as much different from cash games. I know a lot of people view them similarly, but for me, like even in single entries, like the top prize is still so much of the, of the whole field. So like I don't play them like cash games. I think he's a risky single entry play and not a good cash play.
And now we've got a guy, here it is, a LaMelo Ball. LaMelo Ball is available to play. So earlier we had LaMelo Ball, who people thought that he was questionable, but not. He's good to go. LaMelo is going to be in today. Cody Martin ruled out with a groin injury. So nothing really changes there. I know that people were really looking at the Charlotte Hornets as a team they wanted to potentially get exposure to earlier, but Cody Martin being out isn't going to change anything because LaMelo Ball is back. So I think that is the way to go there. The way to go is by not playing the Charlotte Hornets. I mean, I don't think there's any real value added with Cody Martin being out because LaMelo's back. RLOGZS, Bogdanovich or Green on FanDuel at shooting guard. So I assume that he means Bogdan, and I prefer Jalen Green. Green or Bogdanovich?
Green. We haven't even talked about Green, but he's underpriced and popping everywhere.
And then we've got a super chat from Matty Ice, who's asking us for FanDuel, Paul Reed, Mo Wagner, or Goga Batadze. I think that Paul Reed is the guy to go to there now that we do have Kelly Oubre out. There's a little bit more usage to go around in the Sixers starting line, but I do think it solidifies some of the playing time as well for Paul Reed. So give me Paul Reed over Wagner and Batadze. Do you feel differently on that, Matt?
No, I like that call.
Right. I really need to get in this one final update of my lineups. And we'll see. We're getting some more questions about Azur Thompson. Yeah, what's most important about Azur Thompson is the fact that Bogdanovich is out, right? So I talked before about how he played more minutes because he's against his brother. It's kind of dumb, but at the same time, too, they did it the last time they played against them. But most importantly, if Bogdanovich is playing today, Thompson's not somebody to be considering. But because Bogdanovich is out, you have to figure where the minutes are going to go. And I assume it's going to be Kevin Knox and Azur Thompson in the absence of Bogdanovich. So that's really why Azur Thompson is showing up in people's lineups when they're running everything through the Sims. C Love wants to know best utility for under 3,900 for DK single entry. So we're looking 3,800 or below. Matt, he says under 3,900. Who's your favorite guy? 38 and below. I fall on Azur Thompson for that.
It's three guys for me, and I view them all about the same. Azur Thompson, Trey Lyles, Kevon Looney. If I had to pick one, I think it's Looney because I project him to start. They've been blown out the past couple of games. Like he's not a fantasy points per minute monster, but like at 3,700, he can pay you off if he's starting here.
Let's see. We just got a handful of super chats that just came in. So let's answer these starting here from Brian Ackerley. Can we go to Jaden Springer? Only if you're playing a bunch of lineups. That's not something I'd consider with one of my first lineups.
No, he stands out from like a leverage perspective, but like it's a type of play where like, I don't know. I agree with you. Like in one lineup, you can't play him, but if you're multi-entering, I think you could take a couple shots, I guess.
James Magruder wants to know best play for 3,600 or under. And right back to the same guy, Azur Thompson. I think Azur Thompson, somebody played 3,600 or under.
Same. Speaking of Azur, I agree with you. And also on Detroit, we haven't talked about that. A guy that looks really good from a leverage perspective. Alec Burks could also see an uptick in minutes and usage with no Bogdanovich. Yeah,
potential for more playing time as well. And is Alec Burks good? No. But the Pistons are trying to win. They seem to think he's good for some reason. So Burks is somebody else who, it's one of these situations where the Pistons rotations and lineups are already really weird as is. And then you're taking somebody who actually matters to the team and Bogdanovich off the court. We know Cade Cunningham is already hurt as well. So there's a wide range of outcomes that could happen with the minutes for the starters and the backups for the Pistons. So I don't have an issue with him as a tournament option. Big boy IE wants to know Sabonis or Maxey for utility. That's going to be Sabonis. I love Maxey today, but Sabonis, if it's Sabonis versus Maxey in a utility spot, Sabonis.
Yeah, I mean, Maxey is a great play, but Sabonis is the highest projected guy on the slate. by a good margin. So it's the bonus.
Right. Let's see what else. Let's see. We got one more question here. We've got Pierre wants to know best plays on the FanDuel late slate. Yeah, I'm going to have to build lineups for that for you really quick because I do not have lineups built in front of me for the FanDuel late slate. So I'll build some lineups for that really quick and then get back to you. And then we've got Gang Green wants to know Thompson, Batum, and Whitmore. Pick 2 for DK single entry. So Azur Thompson, Nick Batum, Cam Whitmore. Which 2 of those 3 do you like the most, Matt?
Man, I like Cam Whitmore and Thompson the most, but he's the one I'm not playing out of them because I can't get to that $100.
That
$200.
is Thompson and Batum for me. So we're the same on the same page, right?
Yeah, we're on the same page.
All right. My final lineups are uploaded here. It has a shit ton of Philadelphia 76ers. And then we've got the question for the top FanDuel late night. So one thing also, best plays on the FanDuel late slate. Do you mean the 8 p.m. one or the 9:30 p.m.? I hope you mean the 9:30 by late because that's what I built lineups for. And at each position, the guys that got the most of Jamal Murray at point guard, KCP at shooting guard, Scotty Barnes at small forward, Thad Young at power forward, Jokic at center. Daniel Buffington wants to know DeRozan or Jalen Johnson. Boy, how good has Jalen Johnson been lately? We're doing a 1v1 here. DeRozan versus Jalen Johnson. If you could only roster one of these guys, Matt, would you go to Jalen Johnson or DeMar DeRozan?
Jalen Johnson. I like both a lot, but it's Jalen Johnson.
It is Jalen Johnson for me as well. He's been playing outstandingly well. Just a couple years ago, he was on the G. He wasn't even good enough to be on the NBA roster. They had him down in the G League, and now he's been killing it. Let's see what else we have here. We answered that one. Mod T, Gilliard or Hampton for a last man in. Oh my God.
Ugh.
This sounds like a lineup that's down bad.
Rebuild.
Yeah. I mean, Gilliard, we have Gilliard projected for 12 fantasy points, and we've got Hampton for 9. I'm going to say Gilliard. The real answer is neither of them. If you just build a lineup you love and you absolutely need a punt, then sure, go to Gilliard. Something else that could benefit him as well. If the Grizzlies get blown out, which is going to happen a lot down the stretch of the year, he'll play some garbage time as well. He's like 5'4". He's balding and he's 23 years old. Nothing's going for Gilliard right now, but I think he's a slightly better option than Hampton. Let's see, are we caught up on super chats? We're about 90 seconds away from the show. And if you guys are not done yet, do us a big favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are still waiting on, I was just scrolling the internet to see if there was any updates that have come in on Rudy Gobert. But there have not been. Rudy Gobert still listed as questionable. My best guess, Matt, because this is coming down to the wire here, I think he's more likely to play than sit at this point. But what is your final guess on Rudy Gobert before we get to lock?
Sits. Didn't play last game. Easy matchup. I'm going to say he's more likely to sit. Makes me like Simons more.
So we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening. I'm going to be in Discord for the rest of the night. So, well, the slate... Oh, my bad. Chris Williams, I'm going to answer that for you right now because I built out the lineups and then I forgot to get back to you on that. So here they are. All right. So we've got time here as well. It doesn't lock until later. So this is for the Pelicans Nuggets game. Yeah. So I'll stick around here for a couple minutes and we'll go over the captain for tonight. My bad, Chris. I ran those lineups and then totally forgot about that. Here are the captains I got exposure to in order. Number 1, it was Jokic, and overwhelmingly, Jokic up in more than half of my lineups in the captain spot, so he's definitely somebody you want to get to. Jamal Murray is the only other player north of 10% exposure to. So Murray, Jokic, that makes up the majority of my exposures. Then Zion, just under 10%. If you're looking to, bam, Rudy Gobert in. I win that. Next,
yeah, you win.
And then if you want to go to somebody who's a little bit more contrarian at the captain to save some salary, Aaron Gordon was the guy who came up next, but it's really only Jokic and Murray that any kind of significant exposure to. So apologies, Chris. Didn't mean to do that to you there, but I ran the lineups, had them in the background and totally forgot. So Chris, once again, thank you very much for the super chat and always for supporting the channel. So guys, thank you very much for watching the show. Have a great weekend. See you back here tomorrow, and good night.
Go Browns.